So today I want to talk to you about a way of looking at life that I learned through some experiences that I've had growing up through going through this engineering degree. Most of you don't know this, but I'm an aerospace engineering student. But there's also a lot more to me. You know, I was blessed to be exposed to some really great leaders from the day I was born. Bob Proctor was one of the first people to hold me as a child. And because of that influence that he had on my dad and on me indirectly, I've been able to look at the world from a different perspective, one that not many people have and share. So that's what I'm here to present to you today. What if there was another way of looking at things? And it's actually funny because a few days ago, I was on a walk with one of my close friends from engineering and one of his friends. And this was my first time meeting this friend. But it became very clear within the first few minutes of our walk that this person was just not operating in a very conscious mindset, a very empowered mindset. And, you know, me being me, I like to challenge people. I like to show people another way. I like to get them to expand their mind and maybe consider ways of going through life that they hadn't before. So, you know, I was planting little seeds right there, giving him a little pushback. And eventually, you know, the conversation started to get a little heated, and it got to the point where he turns to me and he goes, "Well, you know what, Sophia? It's not my fault that I was born a Chinese immigrant." And I take a minute and I pause, and then I say to him, "Okay, but what if there was another way?" And he's like, "What do you mean? Continue that sentence." I said, "What
Sophie, you're muted.
Sophia, sorry, did you guys mute me?
Sorry.
No problem. So where did I leave off? So basically, this guy says to me, "You know, Sophia, it's not my fault that I was born a Chinese immigrant." And after a second, you know, I took a pause and I turned to him and I go, "Well, what if there was another way of looking at things? What if there was a way in which you are not a victim to the circumstances that you were born into?" Dead silence. And after a few, you know, I was worried now. I'm like, "Oh boy, maybe I just like went too far right there." After a few seconds, he turns to my friend and he goes, "Yo, this girl's pretty dope." And it was just like a wow moment for me, because I realized that if you really give people that window, they know in their heart and their soul that this is true. And that's kind of the mindset that I want you to have today going into this presentation. Is be open to what I'm about to share with you. Be open to this information, because it could completely change your world and your experience forever. So how did I come to learn this way of living? How did I come to learn this way of experiencing life? It all started in the summer of 2018. So for those of you who don't know, I'm in my 5th year now of my aerospace engineering degree. In summer of 2018, I just finished my 2nd year, and I had got this really great internship at a company called Bombardier. It's an aviation company in Toronto, and it was one of those, you know, those experiences that like anyone in my program would have killed for, especially at just being in 2nd year, you know. But I got there, you know, and you could see these pictures of me. This is me in my office, me in the office gear. I got there and I absolutely hated it. I had a 4-month internship. So the first 2 months I was there, I dreaded every single day. I had to get up at 5 a.m. to catch the train, to be at work by 7 o'clock. And I literally felt like I was living in my own personal nightmare. And at this point, I already knew engineering was probably not the thing for me. I was having a lot of struggles, even being motivated in the program and seeing like what my future could look like in this office, in this really, it was like a 7 to 4 at this point, work life. I was just like, no, I hate this. Something has to change. In the middle of that summer, my dad decided to take me and my sister to the Paradigm Shift event hosted by Bob Proctor in Los Angeles. Now, if you guys know Bob is someone who really knows how to get someone to take action. He talks all about frequency, the law of attraction, and how to create the life of your dreams. And at this point, I was desperate. I mean, I wanted things to change so bad. I had no direction. I was so worried about the path that I was on and the future I was headed towards that I grabbed onto every single word he said. And I listened closely, and he was repeating over and over and over, make a decision, make a decision. You have to make a decision if you want your life to change. So I'm sitting there at the dinner table that night at Nobu. And I go to my dad and I'm like, I know what I'm going to do. I'm like, I have it figured out. I have it. I know what I'm going to do. My whole life's going to change. I'm like, Papa, I'm going to drop out of engineering. That's the solution. Right, what most people would do, which was to look at the outside circumstance and say, okay, how can I change my outside circumstance? And my dad goes to me and he's like, no, Sophia, you are not listening when Bob said upside down, inside out. And that's a little phrase that he kept repeating, basically stating that if I wanted things to change, it wasn't my outer environment that had to change. It was my inner environment that had to change. I had to make a decision from the inside out. And, after I hit that wall, I kind of stepped back and I realized he was right. I had to make a decision from the inside without anything changing on the outside. So right there in that moment, I decided that I love what I do. That was the decision I made. I love what I do. I had no idea what that meant. I had no idea what was the thing that I actually love to do. What was my purpose and my drive and the thing that gave me fulfillment? I don't know. But I just decided that no matter what I was actually physically doing, that I was going to love it, that I was going to pretend it was the most fulfilling work of my life. So I go back to Bombardier that week after that weekend with this new mindset of I love what I do, right? And I'm taking with me all the tools that I learned at the seminar. So Bob Proctor, he says, I read Think and Grow Rich every morning. He's been studying it for 65 years now. So I was like, okay, I better start this. So I start reading Think and Grow Rich on my morning commutes. I start writing my gratitude list on those morning commutes. And I start visualizing, really ask myself, what would I genuinely love to do? And I got this picture in my mind of this villa in Italy. This is like my dream, my vision for the future. And I walk into that office on that first day back as if this is like the best job that you could have ever given me. I have a huge smile on my face and everyone's looking at me like, okay, what happened to her? Because I was like a completely different person before this weekend, right? I was miserable every day and everyone knew it. I just let everyone know how much I hated it there. But something was different about me now. I had like a spark in my step. I felt like I was walking around giggling, like I had some like secret, because I was living in a different world. Mentally and emotionally, I was experiencing a completely different life than what I was living physically. And in that first day back, okay, this is just before even like, the continually repeating all of these steps. In the first day back, just after making that decision, I was moved from a desk that was dark, away from any windows, alone. I was not close to anyone else in the office. I was moved to a desk right beside this huge window, right in the middle of all my coworkers. And if you've ever worked in an office before, you know that sunlight is crucial. Right. And because I was showing up differently, right? Because I felt like I was doing really meaningful, purposeful work. Even if I was like programming some code that I absolutely hated, I pretended I was sitting right there on that bench that you see in that photo, writing my best-selling book. And every morning on that commute, I wrote, I'm so grateful now that, and I wrote in first person all the goals that I want to achieve, as if I had already achieved them. And those morning commutes, those 5 a.m. wake-up calls became my favorite time. And dare I say, I truly miss that summer now. I look back and those were some great mornings on the train, on the subway, not even this train, on the subway. I loved it. Right. So very quickly, I started to realize that I had a lot more control over my perspective, over my experience than I thought. And I didn't know it at the time, but I was actually tapping into a very profound universal truth. And that's what's today known by quantum physicists as the quantum model of reality. Now, I'm not going to get into all the scientific proofs behind this model, but here's some really great books that you can look into if you're interested. The Divine Matrix by Greg Braden, Becoming Supernatural by Dr. Joe Dispenza, and Reality Transurfing by Vadim Zeland. That one's more like a textbook. So, if you're really into science like me, then you'll like that one. But if I had to sum the quantum model of reality up into 3 main points, this is what it would be. First, the multiverse is real. So what do I mean by that? I mean that there is an infinite number of parallel Earths in existence, but that every single Earth never changes. So think of it like this. Every single reality, every single possibility that you could ever experience is in existence, right? We can think about it as like a frequency, a wave of energy, like a radio wave or like a TV channel that you can tune into. And that's what I was doing in my mind, sitting there at my desk, thinking about my villa in Italy, thinking about all the goals that I was accomplishing and really feeling like I was there. I was tapping into another reality through my higher faculty of my mind. The second point of the quantum model of reality is that time and space are illusions. Everything is happening here and now. So the reason we have this illusion of time is because our consciousness is constantly swiping through every billionth of a second a different parallel reality, right? And it's the continuum of constantly almost like swiping through, those little things that you used to click and like see different slides go through. Imagine that happening every billionth of a second. And that's how we have this illusion of time and space. But really, we're always watching the same thing, the different versions of the same here and now. Lastly, your experience is determined by your level of consciousness. Now, these points are kind of hard to conceptualize in your mind, but there's a really great example that I can give you. And I want you to think about your TV screen right now. Now, when you're watching a TV show, you can go on Guide and you can see all the other TV shows that are playing at the same time. And when you're going through the other channels, do you ever question whether the original show you were watching ever stops playing? No, right? It's always playing. And you can switch through, right? And you can look at all different types of shows, but you never move from the spot that you're sitting in. That's how reality works. There's an infinite number of parallel Earths happening right here and now. And with your imagination, with your mind, with your conscious awareness, you can see and peer into different versions of reality. That's what the power of the imagination is. You're not looking at random things. You're not looking at some fake image in your mind. You're looking at a real possibility. Why? Because there's an infinite number of them. So if you can see it, it is real, right? Energy can neither be created or transformed. That means all the realities that has ever been created are already in existence, right? And as you switch through, that the reality that you might be watching right now is there, but there's also a whole bunch of other ones taking place at the same time. And you don't even have to move from where you're sitting to be able to swipe through infinite numbers. And then it's the one that you choose to watch that dictates your experience. So now we're going to take this a step further. Instead of looking at every reality as a channel on a TV, I want you to think of them more like radio waves. And these lines represent radio frequencies, almost like if you're tuning a radio, right? You're going to swipe through the different frequencies and you're going to be able to hear different channels. Well, the same thing happens with reality. And what determines what reality you're watching and experiencing is your conscious awareness. It's what you decide. Now, I don't want you to get the impression that these waves are separate from each other, because they're not. There's not spaces in between them. Think of it more like a rainbow. You see how all the different fragments of light kind of just fade into one another? That's how frequency works. That's how parallel realities exist. They are all intimately connected to each other. So instead of thinking it as TV channels, think of it more as a wave, frequency waves existing in an ocean of energy that today scientists call the quantum field. And you are energy too, right? It's not just the physical reality we see around us that is energy, it's you as well. If you actually looked at your atoms under a microscope, you would find that there's not little particles making them up, but vortices of energy. Right? So our mind really is able to construct this picture of space and time, but we have to understand that there's so much beyond the scope of what we're actually, what is actually happening. There's so much that we don't really understand, but with the tools I'm going to give you today, you're going to be able to start to take conscious control over your experience. Right, so that's next. Next, we have to look at, okay, so what determines your frequency exactly and how can we gain conscious control? Because most people never gain conscious control over their experience, right? And that's why they think things just happen. Everything is just random, right? But it's not random. There is a law that dictates how the energy manifests in your life. To put it simply, seeing is not believing. Believing is seeing. And I want to give you guys a quick example of how this works. So I want you to imagine for a second. Imagine I place you on the side of a highway. And as you're watching all the cars go by. And as you watch, I tell you, okay, for the next half an hour, you're going to stand here and you're going to count all the red cars that you see. And then a half an hour, I come back and I ask you, how many red cars you see? Okay, you tell me like 30. Okay, cool. Then I tell you, all right, how many yellow cars did you see? What are you gonna say? You're probably gonna say, I don't know. I wasn't looking at them, right? I wasn't looking at the yellow cars. I was looking at the red cars, right? And this is the really interesting point, because did your eyes see the yellow cars? Of course they did. If you were looking at the road, then clearly your eyes saw the yellow cars. But because you weren't looking for the yellow cars, your conscious mind did not take stock of them. Right? So you never are truly seeing with your eyes, you're seeing with your mind. Think about how many billions of data points are being collected through our senses in every moment of every day. But how much of that are we actually aware of? Think about the fact that your subconscious mind right now is regulating the blood circulating through your body, your heart beating, your lungs pumping. But when can you actually, like, your heart is always beating, but you don't feel it beating until you start to pay attention to it. You don't notice your breath until you decide to consciously pay attention to it. And life truly works this way. There is infinite opportunity and abundance present right here, right now, right? Because that's all that truly exists. But because we're not looking for it, we can't experience it. We can't see it. We can only experience that which we are looking for. And you say, okay, well, how do I know what I'm looking for? Like, how does that translate in a way that I can really like understand and apply? The things that you're looking for is dictated by your beliefs. A belief is a subconscious program that works to continually reaffirm itself. So if you want to know what you're always on the lookout for, it's the things that you believe. You will have to think of if you think of your mind as a computer, right? Your brain is a computer. The belief is a program in that computer. It's a software system. And the second you accept a belief as true, your mind goes to work trying to affirm that that belief is true. That's what the belief is designed to do. It's designed to affirm itself. So it's going to look for it's going to use mechanisms to prove to you that it is true. Right? So how does a belief get you to accept it as truth? First of all, I'll ask you this. How do you actually know that you believe something? And this is something that, I wasn't fully aware of until, I heard it, I read it, I've studied this stuff. But, someone said to me, You only know that a belief is true when you feel like it's true, right? That's one of the mechanisms, the main mechanism that beliefs use to make you accept it, is that you'll start to really feel that it's true. You know, beliefs create a vibration in your energy field that makes you feel a certain emotion. And once you've accepted something emotionally, it means your subconscious mind accepts it, your body accepts it, because the subconscious is the feeling mind, right? And then once you start to feel like something is true, those feelings start to induce thought patterns. The emotion actually rewires the neurological pathways in your brain so that you start thinking thoughts that are in alignment with this belief. And then when your belief, your feelings, and your thoughts are all in harmony, you're going to start to make decisions that are in alignment with that belief, right? And when you start to make decisions that are in alignment with that belief, you're going to start to behave in a certain way, right? And then would you or would you not agree that if you're feeling a certain way, you're thinking a certain way, you're making decisions based on this belief system, you're behaving in a way because of this belief system, you're probably going to get results that are in alignment with the belief system as well. And then here's another crazy thing that happens. Those results affirm the same feelings. And then this is a cycle that starts running entirely on its own. And it's very hard to get out of the cycle if you don't understand that you're in a program, that you're in a cycle to begin with, that the beliefs that you were given when you were a child, right? The beliefs that have been repeated to you and shown to you numerous times, any event or emotion in your life that had any event that had a strong emotional impact on you in your life probably induced a certain belief. And if you're ever confused about what beliefs you hold, you just have to look at your results. Your results will always let you know where your beliefs stand, right? And you can start to notice. You can start to notice the thoughts that are associated with each of your beliefs. Whenever you have a negative thought, make sure to trace it back. Ask yourself, okay, how am I feeling? Okay, so what must I believe to be true then? And this is how we slowly start to become aware of the programs that are running our life. I thought this was really cool to show you. This is how your mind actually shapes reality. So we have a prism here, and this is a really cool experiment. I actually did this experiment when I was a kid I think I was like 7 years old for my science fair. And we took this glass prism and you shine a beam of light through it. And what happens is the beam of light splits. It bends, it refracts into all these different colors. And this is a really great visual that shows you how your mind shapes reality. You know, energy, consciousness is nothing more than energy. It's awareness, it's intention. If you are focusing on something, then you're conscious of it, right? So once your consciousness gets filtered through your beliefs, your emotions, and your thoughts, then it starts to bend physical reality, and you get results that are in alignment with those beliefs, emotions, and thoughts, right? This is think of a projector. What you see on the screen of your mind is like the roll of tape that you put into the projector, the roll of film, right? And then it's your energy, your consciousness that's being filtered through that roll of film, the light that's going through and projecting out all around you a physical reality, a hologram, right? And it doesn't seem like that, obviously. We think everything is solid. Of course it's not solid. Everything is vibrating. Right? So know this, your senses are not accurate. But if you can wrap your mind around this image and understand that everything is being filtered through you, through your mind, it's your paradigms, your belief systems that are shaping your reality. Then you could start to really tap into, how do I start to now choose the reality that I want to experience instead of being subjected to the reality that I've experienced in the past. Right, so going back to this cycle, right, I started to ask myself, okay, what is the easiest point in the cycle to take conscious control? Feelings are really hard. You know, Joe Dispenza says that you can never think greater than how you feel. And that's the truth. The second you start feeling a negative vibration, it is so hard to take yourself out of it. If you're feeling down, sad, depressed, I mean, I'm sure you've experienced this yourself. You can try to think your way out of it. It's not going to happen. Thoughts. I mean, thoughts may be a little bit easier than feelings, right? But then again, you have 70,000 thoughts a day. You know how much energy it takes to stay vigilant of every single thought? So thoughts are there, you know, but it's a little bit more difficult. What I've found in my personal experience is the easiest place to take control in this cycle is right here. It's your decisions, right? Because you can make a decision right now in this moment. And that's all it takes. A one strong, powerful decision. And that's what I did. That's what I did. Going back to my story, you know, I was vibrating on a frequency, and that frequency was, I hate my job. I hate this path that I'm on. I hate engineering. But then I made a decision. I decided that I love what I do. And with that decision came, you know, that was a state of consciousness. That was a frequency. That was a reality, a parallel earth that I was tuning into. I love what I do. I mean, even just look at those two statements. You can feel the difference in those, right? That's because you're literally feeling the frequency. You're feeling the energy, the shift between those two paradigms, between those two realities. Now, the most important part here on this diagram is the gap between the two. You know, I could have made a decision, okay, my job is not that bad. But would that have really made a difference for me? Probably not. And would I have been able to catch myself if I was falling out of that frequency? If I said, okay, my job is just neutral now, like it is what it is. The second I started having like those negative thoughts and feelings again, I probably wouldn't have even caught myself because there wasn't enough of a gap for me to notice that I was dropping in frequency. But if you choose to go up there, if you choose to make a jump, to believe in something you have absolutely no evidence supporting, right? Something like, I love what I do, even though literally nothing in my life changed. And I just decided I love what I do. Guess what? Every time I started falling out of that frequency, I felt it right away. Every time I had a negative thought enter my mind, I felt it right away. Because it was such a large gap between where I was placing my conscious intention. Joe Dispenza says, if you are not defined by a vision of the future, then you are bound to repeat the past, right? Because we are going to be stuck in these cycles unless we can see a clear vision for ourselves, unless we can tap into that higher frequency, that new reality. If you can continue to associate yourself with that reality versus the one that you're living in, versus the one that your physical senses are telling you that you experience, you better watch out because things are going to start to shift, right? I love Joe Dispenza. I did a workshop with him this summer and he said, your mind has to become a map to the future. And then you have to teach your body to believe it, right? So when you make that decision, your mind is now becoming a map to your future. You're saying, okay, this is where X marks the spot. This is where I'm going. This is my new point of reference. And then teaching your body to believe it, that's where the repetition comes in, right? Because I didn't just make a decision. I made that decision every moment of every day. You have to consciously commit to that frequency that you are trying to hold. How did I do it? I didn't even know really what I was doing. I was just following what Bob told me to do. I was visualizing though every day, every morning on the train, I was visualizing the life that I was living. While I was at work at the office, I would tune into that vision periodically, like once an hour, maybe even more. I would actually play like vacation music in my AirPods while I was doing my programming or whatever, and just pretend that I was like, this is what I mean. It's the red car, yellow car situation. You can choose what you are aware of. Even though I'm sitting there doing the programming, right? I don't have to have those thoughts of like, oh my God, I hate doing this, right? I could be sitting there doing my work and actually just be like, oh my God, I love doing this, right? And at first it might feel like you're lying to yourself, but that's the whole teaching your body to believe it thing. You have to keep repeating it, right? So I had affirmations. I would always tell myself, I love what I do. I'm so happy and grateful now that I love what I do. I feel so fulfilled in my work. Guys, I didn't even know what work I wanted to do. I just knew that I wanted to love it. Gratitude. I was doing my gratitude statements every morning on the train. 10 things I'm grateful for. I would use things that I'm currently grateful for in my life, things I actually tangibly had. And then I would also think about things that I didn't have yet physically, but affirming to myself in the present now moment that yes, I did have them, because I own them where? In my mind. I saw two worlds, but I lived in one of them. And that's what by live in one of them, I mean, that is what I was experiencing. That is what I was focusing on. I was looking at the yellow car, right? Even though, you know, maybe there was a bunch of red cars passing by, maybe like things weren't really how they were on the inside, but I was looking at the vision in my mind that I wanted to experience. And then finally, repetition. Every single day I had to do this, and you will feel the difference when you start to have those negative thoughts creep in, when you start to get ungrateful, right? When things start to tick you off and you get frustrated, you're just going to notice it right away. You're not going to be your same fun, energetic, right, fulfilled self. And once you start feeling those emotions of like true joy and fulfillment for no reason at all, you're not going to want to stop, right? Because you're just going to feel so good that you're going to want to keep up there. Right, so I came to this conclusion. Ultimately, you have to make a decision to believe in your inner world more than you believe in your external world, because now you know that it's your beliefs which create that outer experience, right? You're equipped now with the information that only 1% of people have. And of those 1%, probably only a fraction actually apply and take action. So you have to start to value the things you see in your mind and the things you feel in your heart more than anything you see outside you, right? This is just the hologram. Everything out there, all right, this is just the hologram. You have to get to the roll of film. The roll of film is the things you can see in your mind and feel in your heart. Right, so let's go through a few examples, because I want you to start to think about the quality of decisions that you have the power to make right here, right now, in this moment. You know, you could say to yourself, I make $5,000 a month. Maybe you make $5,000 a month right now. I don't really know. I tell myself every day I'm a multimillionaire because I know where I'm going, because I'm defining myself by a vision of my future. And you can definitely like take that big goal and now condense it into small goals. Say like, okay, maybe I make $5,000 a month. Now I'm going to start telling myself I make $5,000 a week. Just tell yourself that I make $5,000 a week. I make $5,000 a week. I make $5,000 a week. You know, I'll give you a really great example here. This summer, I decided to do a little manifestation experiment of my own. I wanted to grow my Instagram following. And I had about 450 followers at the time. And I had been running my account for about 8 months. I decided by the end of the next month, so I gave myself 1 month time, I wanted to hit 1,000 followers. So I'd have to more than double the following I made in 8 months in the next 1 month. And I did the same process. Every morning I would meditate and I would visualize myself hitting this goal, and I would feel it, like to the point of tears. Like I was so happy and grateful that I hit this goal by the date that I had set. And I would write it every day. I'm so happy and grateful to have 1,000 followers on my Instagram account. Right. And I applied the same techniques, and I truly, honestly, by about the middle of the month, I started to truly and honestly believe that I already had 1,000 followers. Like I knew that I was now living in a different world than I was seeing with my eyes. So what ended up happening, this is actually a very interesting point to make. What ended up happening, about 5 days before the deadline I set for myself, I had this really bad day where I was just a nervous wreck. I was so worried, stressed out that I just wasn't going to hit it. And I was like feeling it, like I was crying and all the self-doubt was creeping in. Right out, luckily I was with my dad that day and he snapped me out of it real quick. And I was able to get back into that vibration of like faith and knowing and trusting that I don't even know how, but by some miracle, I'm going to hit my $1,000 followers on Instagram. What ended up happening was I hit my 1,000 follower goal 24 hours delayed from the date that I had set. Why? Because of the time that I had spent doubting myself. And so I realized it's every moment that what really dictates how long it takes for you to reach your goal or how long it takes for it to manifest physically, because you should feel like you've already reached it. If you're doing this right, you should feel like it's already done. But the moment that it actually manifests in physical reality is the moment that you truly and honestly accept that idea as true. And there's no more shadow of a doubt. And every moment you spend doubting up until that point pushes it a little further away. But every moment you spend in faith during that point attracts it a little closer to you. The next decision, you can make a decision like this. Maybe you're in a relationship right now. Maybe you're not. Maybe you're not happy in a relationship. He or she doesn't appreciate me, Or you could start telling yourself, I am in a happy, healthy, supportive relationship. Right? And you can feel the difference between these. You can really feel it. Because one of two things are going to start to happen if you do this. Either the person you're with is going to start to change, or they're going to fall away. And it's interesting because I have no idea why I was doing this, guys, but there was a period of time right before I met the last person that I was in a relationship with. About 2 weeks before meeting him, I don't know why I was doing this. I really don't know why. 2 weeks before I met him, I was going to bed every night feeling like I was falling asleep next to the love of my life. Like genuinely just feeling like, what would it feel like to fall asleep next to like my perfect ideal partner? And although this gentleman did not end up to be that person, we're not together anymore. The things I learned through that experience, I would never take back. And I know that they are crucial for me in my journey to actually manifesting that real partner. And that's the thing, you have to have that faith that what you do attract you're always heading towards that goal. You're always heading towards that vision. Even if it doesn't seem like it, what you're being given is something that you actually need in order to get there. Maybe you're not going to get it right away, first thing, but what you will get is an experience that is going to transform you into the person you need to become to have that thing, that person, that partnership, whatever it is that you really, really want. So that's another lesson that I learned, doing these kind of little thought experiments, these little manifestation techniques, right? Now the last thing you could say to yourself, I hate living in this tiny apartment. I'm living in a tiny apartment right now, but you want to know something, guys? The first thing I see every morning when I wake up is the ocean. That's what I do. When I wake up in the morning, I close my eyes and I picture the ocean, because that's the first thing I want to see when I wake up. And I take that moment to just fully and honestly, truly connect with that vibration, connect with that reality, because I know that it's real. I know by just the fact that I can see it in my mind proves to me that it's real, right? Because that's the power of the mind. You can peer into infinite realities. So now I tell myself I live in a big, beautiful villa in Italy. And maybe I don't live in a big, beautiful villa in Italy, but that doesn't mean that I can't walk around this place feeling like I live in a big, beautiful villa in Italy, right? And, I know that maybe not all of my manifestations have come to fruition yet, but I hope that you can see by the power of the decisions that I've made for myself, by the way that I identify myself with the future vision, that my success is inevitable. I mean, even the fact that I'm giving this presentation right now, I'm proud of myself. I tell myself, you know what I tell myself? That I'm a world-class speaker and best-selling author. And a few years ago, I wouldn't have been able to give a presentation like this. But because I made that decision, I decided I'm a world-class speaker and best-selling author, the skills, the talents, the resources I need have come. And I'm just in the middle of this journey. I'm at the beginning of this journey. There is so much more to go. And that's what you'll find, guys. The value is not in what you get, but it's how you grow along the way. It's the person that you become, right? It's what you learn. It's the skills you develop. It's how you start to believe in yourself. It's how you start to recognize how much power you have over your experience. It's how you start to consciously take control of your perspective. You know, maybe you can't control everything in your outside world. Maybe you can't control everyone in your life, but what you can control is the way that you think about it, the way that you feel about it. And those things are going to then leak into your actions, your behaviors, and your results. You know, something, I think the main lesson that I learned doing these little experiments with myself was that when you already feel like you're living the life of your dreams, you're no longer waiting for it to happen. And that's really where the miracle takes place, because then you can truly enjoy the journey. So I want to thank you guys all so much for listening today. And remember, you're always one powerful decision away from a completely different life. Thank you. And I'm really excited to get into this Q&A because I'm sure you guys have a lot of questions, and I just want to like shower you with as much knowledge that I can in the time that we have together.
Wow, everybody should be able to unmute themselves.
Thank you, Sophia. That was inspiring.
Awesome job.
Thank you, guys. But I want to know if you guys have any specific questions, maybe about your own, any personal manifestation experiences you've tried for yourself. Or maybe certain,
Sophia,
yeah.
I just want to say you are a world-class speaker and author. It just is, it's electrifying to me. It's amazing, and I'm very grateful that I'm driving now, so I have to get off, but I just want you to know that you're really powerful. Thank you.
I really
and thank you to your
that.
dad. Everybody does help that, yes.
But I thank you. Yeah.
I haven't got to the stage where I have a question yet, but I just want to comment, like I think when I was in college, I had some classes from a professor who talked about similar things to this. He called it PMA, positive mental attitude, you know, and he was, but he was talking about more than just being positive. He was talking about creating things by your positive attitude. And it reminds me so much of what we in our religious faith call living by faith, because you're believing in things you can't see, but you know they're true. And it's really, it's exciting for me to ponder the connection there. And that's, I guess I thought of it because, you know, I'm trying to hang what you're teaching me on something I already know so I can comprehend it. That's how we learn best, is how does this connect to what I already know? And yeah, you've just given me a ton. I took massive amounts of notes on my laptop, so I'm going to be thinking about it a lot. And I don't know, like I said, I don't know that I have a question yet, but I probably will at some point. Thank you so much.
Thanks for sharing that. I really appreciate you sharing that, because for me, it's so interesting to see the connection and the overlap between the scientific truths that we are now coming to find, right? These new evidence and new way of viewing reality, and the spiritual truths that have been in existence forever, like living in faith, believing in something you can't see. Now we have scientific evidence to tell you that that is actually a really good thing to do. Believe in something you can't see, because although you may not be able to see it with your eyes, it doesn't make it any less real.
Yeah.
There's actually way more than what we can see with our eyes. You know, like
way more.
we actually shouldn't even trust our eyes.
That's true. And if you think about the way Jesus healed people or other things like that, it's just exactly the same. That's what Dr. Joe Dispenza, if you guys are interested in quantum healing and how people are like having miraculous healing stories, like things that you hear in the Bible, look at it, what the work he's doing, because he's showing people how to jump into different realities, how to literally become a new person, to become that healed person, that healed version of themselves, right? Because that's a reality that exists in an infinite field of possibility, and how to consciously observe that reality now, regardless of the physical illness that they're experiencing in another one. Yeah. Such a challenge, because when you're ill, I just feel overpowered by all of the symptoms that are so obvious, and you tend to obsess about them. So yeah, that would take an incredible ability to believe and imagine.
Sophia, this is Gary. I got a question or a comment. Could you elaborate on the piece where you're talking about you came back from the weekend with Bob Proctor, and you went into work, and you were you were working in the dark corner of the office. Develop more how it turned out that you moved from the dark corner to the light. Just say a little bit more about that. Did you?
Yes.
Was it all in your thoughts, or did you say something to someone, or just talk about that more?
I did not say anything to anyone. What ended up happening was, I think someone in the department either got moved or like left the company, and that was the chair that opened up, and they decided to give it to me, the new intern. And it was a beautiful spot, literally right next to the windows, right surrounded by all my coworkers, all my peers. And that also gave me the opportunity then, you know, to start networking with people more, to start really gaining wisdom and insight from the people around me, which I probably would have never done before that weekend, because I just wasn't in that attitude of wanting to put myself out there, wanting to talk to people. You know, I was closed off, shut off. I hated where I was. I hated what I was doing. But think about that for a minute. You showing up as a different person changes your whole experience. Even getting into an Uber with an intent, when you're feeling like really happy and joyful, and you want to talk to that person who's your Uber driver and share with them and get to know them, you might end up, I've learned some crazy things from Uber drivers, but then you also have the choice to get into that Uber, you know, and not say anything and keep quiet and literally be in silence the whole car. But you don't even know, that person could offer you $1 billion idea, but it's because of the way that you show up and the way that you get in the car. So honestly, I think it's the way, the energy that I walked into that office.
And did you get in?
I don't even know how, but like the space opened up and I was given that awesome new desk.
Yeah. And did you get any feedback from your coworkers? Like, did they like say, where you been, or what's going on, or
yes,
whatever?
They were like, I don't even think they even, because I was working with some of my friends in engineering, right? And one of my friends was just like, he was just like, I don't understand. Like you hated it before and now you love it. I was like, yep, I love it because I decided that I love it. And I would actually spend all our lunch breaks talking about Think and Grow Rich, talking about the conference and the things that I started to learn, right? And sharing it with them. And I think that helped them start to see like why I was adopting this completely new attitude, because I realized that if I wanted anything to change, if I did want to, because at this point, I didn't know what my purpose was. Like, I didn't know what was a job, a career that I would like really honestly enjoy. And so that's why I started telling myself, I love what I do. I love what I do. I love what I do. Because I knew if I ever wanted to align with, you know, a reality in which I did love what I do, then I would have to start telling myself that. I would have to make that decision internally first. And it's interesting because as I made that decision during the rest of that summer, I started to get all these downloads and ideas about the Mind Palace, about, you know, I would always call that how the Mind Palace actually came to be. This is my Instagram page that I run. For those of you who don't know, was I saw that vision in my mind and I would call it my Mind Palace. It would always be almost be like my happy place, the place that I would like connect to and know that like that's where I'm going, but also that is where I am. That is where I choose to be. And I told my dad about, you know, I've been doing this thing, visualizing, I go to my Mind Palace. And he was like, that's the name of your book. And the name just stuck, you know? And so it was from making the decision, I love what I do, that I actually started to get all these little insights about something that I would really genuinely love to do. And the same thing happened when I ran my little experiment on Instagram over the summer. You know, I decided I have 1,000 followers and all of a sudden my content started to change. I started to get so many new insights and ideas about like, you know, the posts, the words. I felt like the videos that I was putting out at that time were just on a completely new frequency. And you'll notice that. You will notice that once you make the decision, you know, that state of consciousness already comes built in with all the thoughts, all the feelings, all the ideas, all the resources. Like you will start to tap into that frequency and you better watch out because genius is going to start to come through you.
So
you know,
how do you keep the focus on your work? So if you're doing a technical engineering project and then you flip into your Mind Palace mode, maybe even appearing a little bit giggly amongst your coworkers, is there ever like a collision with the mind and the actual work?
So what I would do was connect to that vision, but really what you're connecting to, the vision, the thing that you see in your mind is truly just a tool that helps you get into a feeling, right? And so it was that feeling of joy and happiness and fulfillment that I was really connecting to. And then once I got myself in that feeling and I decided that this was the feeling I was going to stay in, I could go on to do like the actual engineering work, except I didn't relate to it in a way that I was like, oh, I hate this stuff. I was relating to it as if it was like very fulfilling and fun and enjoyable work. Does that make sense?
I believe you. I can't quite see, you know, so I live in a northern climate and there's 20 feet, not 20 feet, but 20 inches of new snow and you got to go out and shovel.
Mm-hmm. But this is the thing, you can shovel the snow, but not think to yourself, oh my God, I hate shoveling the snow. It's so cold. You can be shoveling the snow, but then thinking to yourself, I'm so grateful to live in such a beautiful place. You can be thinking to yourself, like, you can be shoveling your snow and imagining a beach in your mind. You know, you always have the choice.
Yeah, I was just thinking you were coming from a place of gratitude for what you were doing.
Yeah.
And that was one way of saying what the difference was. Like, I'm happy to shovel this snow, right?
Right, even just doing that, because you're tapping into like the vibration, the feeling you want to be in, just applying it to this like new situation, this new.
I like what you said. The visualization is just to get you to a feeling. And then what was the rest of it? And then the feeling.
The feeling is the frequency, right? The feeling is the feeling is conscious awareness of vibration. That's how Bob Proctor describes it, right? And so if you think of different realities as like a radio wave, as a vibration, every time you're feeling something, you're tapping into a certain reality, right? Every feeling will manifest in physical form with the reflection that best suits it. So like joy could mean something different for me than it does for you. And that's why if I'm in a state of joy, I'm probably going to attract a different experience to myself than maybe you would. But it's the feeling that really creates the experience. Anyway, Barbara, you've had your hand up for a long time, so I want to give you a chance to speak.
Well, I have two things to say. One is a statement, and I hadn't realized until the last couple of years how powerful my father's mind was, because he was given a year to live. And he said to me, "The heck with that. I've got things to do and people to see." And 13 years later, he decided it was time for him to move on, to transition, and he was gone in 48 hours.
Wow.
A real example. My question for you, Sophia, in a couple of your presentations, you've talked about meditation and finding that center part. What do you do if you're meditating and all of a sudden the noisiness from your environment impacts or interferes or breaks that concentration? How do you deal with that? Because that's the problem I'm having, is staying in that moment and dealing with the minutia.
This is what
around.
I would say to that, is that's the whole point of meditation, is to learn how to sit with that and how to actually, even though it's happening, to not be aware of it, to not let it affect it. Like, is to learn to sit through them. Like when that happens to me, like that actually even happened. I was on my live meditation on Sunday, because I do weekly live meditations on the Mind Palace, and my home phone starts ringing, and I'm in the meditation, and I know that there's a bunch of people meditating with me, and I'm like, I'm sorry about that, guys, but use this as good practice, right? Be able to sit and maintain your state of calm, your state of peace, regardless of that noise. And it's every time your mind gets taken out of that state of peace, you actually have an opportunity to bring it back. And it's the bringing it back that is the really powerful thing, because every time you bring it back, you're training yourself to be a little bit more, to have a little bit more control over the program, right? Over that subconscious program that's always running. Every time you get distracted and your mind gets out of that state, but then you breathe, you consciously take control, and you come back, that is where the real power, the real magic happens, because that is your training. You know, it's like, why do I decide to like meditate in the cold, in the snow? It's because I want to put myself in a position where I have to ignore my outer environment. Why do I fast for 36 hours once a month? Because I want to be able to choose. I don't want my body to control me. I don't want, my hunger to have power over me. I want to be able to have the mental discipline to control my body, to control my habits, to control my thoughts, my feelings, my beliefs. So it's really good when you have those distractions. And I want you to start to look at them as opportunities.
Thank you. Thank you.
Madeline, you have your hand up. Oh, you're muted.
Thought I unmuted, sorry. Thank you. And I just like to comment. And what I hear is different is what I feel. So listening to Bob Proctor for 22 years and your father, what I'm experiencing with you, and so I'm sure you know the repetition and the theory. So I can see Bob Proctor's little stick figure, and I can hear the stories of the guys that he talks about all the time. But the storytelling, your stories, your transparency, your vignettes that you're sharing makes that theory come to life. So the storytelling makes it come to life, and then your vibrations. Your eyes are the windows to the soul, and you look at us when you're talking, but then you look up. And when you look up, when you're looking up and you're connecting to your higher source, is when the vibration seems to, for me, as I was just observing and listening and hearing, through squinted ears that I feel is a different vibration. And so I applaud you and Michael for being the mentor that you have been to this daughter of yours. But this is really very special, and the timing couldn't be more perfect. So thank you very much and congratulations.
Thank you, Madeline. I always appreciate seeing you and being able to talk with you.
Thank you, Sophia. And we've really appreciated it. My apologies for the technical part of the beginning, but you just took over. It was just masterful. We really appreciate it. Elaine wanted me to mention that next week, Randy Rolfe will be the speaker. And on March 19th, we'll be honoring the work of Ted Aloisio. So thank you very much.
Thank you all so much for joining me. You can follow me on @themindpalace.ca. If this kind of stuff interests you, I talk about a whole range of different mindset tips, different perspective shifts that I hope can really help you live a more joyful, fulfilled whole life.
And we put that
Bye,
in.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.